Hello and welcome! I'm Nicholas Martinez and you've run into the Niche Corner. In an ever-expanding world that is Dungeons & Dragons, the possibility of creating and merging something new into this world is endless and grand. Many people have taken on the feat of incorporating a fresh new idea for this game, and I've decided to take this challenge on myself. And today, I will be bringing the virtual world to your very own table the second you set your hands on the stat block. Today I bring you my series, Monster Mayhem. Sifting through dunes across the sun-scorched sands, an unseeable demon stows away from the heat. A party of caravan wagons drag across the land, in the hope of a town or oasis to poke over the next hill at any chance they get. As though a ball were to be playfully pushed into their direction, the sand parts without warm welcome as it lurches towards the caravans. The Aptonoth begin to stir and waver from their path, uneasy and disturbed by the unforeseeable force. Wagons are vacated as guardsmen plop, then sink into the sand, giving the unintentional signal for their doom to finally reveal itself. A magnificent eruption of sand surges from the ground. A dark shadow is cast over the group, engulfing the light of the sun and blotting out any sign of hope for the supply line. Only moments pass as the grunts and huffs from the beast go silent, and without a second thought, the caravan almost seemingly has vanished. Only the trail of silenced screams is left behind, now forever trapped to the sands of time. The Diablos, a monster of many nightmares, giving hunters a headache to last ages whenever its name is spoken. Where the greatest subside in frustration, the fresh and new do not dare try, and the ignorant meet a quick demise. We are so used to fighting this devil in a video game. I decided to start this series off with the Diablos for its highly recognizable everything, really. In witnessing this monster spread across an entire franchise and evolve into the demonic fury we see in today's games, like Monster Hunter World or Generations, or even, Monster Hunter 6 if we ever get an announcement. Anyways, it's really been a sight to behold. From broken hip thrusts to belligerent charges, to sand surfing surprise attacks, this monster has proven its ferocity is nothing to be trifled with. And any knowledgeable hunter knows that it is a feat of its own to bear witness to the horns of the devil itself. I figured there wasn't a better monster to really start with regarding its evolution over the years. It was, really it was that or Plesioth, and there's no way in hell I'm touching that thing for a bit. I've had too many bad memories already, and I'm not, no. I know a lot of people don't find much fondness with the Diablos, but I prefer it over its single-horned cousin, the Monoblos. It could be because Mono doesn't get the love it probably deserves in the series, only appearing in 2 main installments and 2 spin-offs compared to the duo horn-clad relative who really has appeared in every generation excluding the first generation. Outside of that, every single game this monster has touched and it has rampaged through. The Diablos has even received more variations, which include the Black Diablo subspecies, Apex versions that come with more strength overall, like in Rise or Monster Hunter 4 when Gore Magala was introduced. Anyways, I'm going off. It's known as the Bloodbath Diablos, and this is known as a Deviant. It's a whole story that I can get into, but we can save that for later when we get to that video. It just reminds me of how Mario and Luigi get more love than Wario and Waluigi, and I'm frankly not mad about it. Like, come on. Diablos is actually fearsome where Mono... It feels like they were trying to make Palpatine a creature in the games. Don't get me started on the crusty lips. Go check it out for yourself. I'll throw up a photo even. Here. Breaking down the very foundation of what this monster is, you have the idea of taking tusks from an elephant and implanting them into the head of a triceratops, who has taken the body of a wyvern that forgoes the ability to fly and inherits the power to dig. The brute's legs are muscular so that it may burrow underground quickly with the help of its durable horns and slightly extended claws on the end of its wings. Though it may have true wyvern wings, they are rather bulky, making it a rare sight to see this monster fly for long periods. Rather, it uses them as sails to glide shortly across the sands for devastating speed. The torso is quite large compared to the other flying wyverns and is very dense to protect it from other Diablos' horns when warring over territories. The tail is incredibly distinguishable from its fellow genus, with a double-headed club-like tip and a considerably large thickness. Essentially, we have the bodybuilders of wyverns here. This wyvern is highly territorial as mentioned earlier, causing turf wars with any neighboring beast that seems to be a bit too close to the Diablos' liking. They are known as tyrants of their territories, and can even deter the likes of Teostra, a powerful Elder Dragon class monster, from entering these areas and calling it home. Being natives to the desert, these creatures can withstand blistering temperatures. Oddly enough, they are herbivores by nature and mainly eat cacti that are rich in nutrients and contain fair amounts of water to also hydrate the Diablos. While these monsters are not nocturnal, they do suffer from insomnia frequently, which also adds to their state of hostility and irritability towards anything with a pulse. I mean, I get it, I'm cranky without enough sleep and coffee, so I can't judge. This also may explain why it is more common to see these monsters at night rather than during the day, presumably to also avoid the harsh heat of the desert during the daytime. It is typical to find the nest of a Diablos underground in caverns beneath the deserts, where they don't have to worry about invading creatures, although it is uncommon to find their nests above ground due to no cavern systems beneath the sands. It is quite rare to hear of a Diablos that has ventured far from its grounds also, or into another completely different biome. This can happen if an invading species can overpower the Diablos, but like I said, it's very rare. These wyverns are also very renowned for their sensitivity to sound frequencies. The Diablos will react almost immediately to ear-shattering frequencies, whether above or below the sand depths. Now that we have a general understanding of how this monster functions and lives, we can start breaking down how it will act, react, and adapt into the form of D&D. Going over its official stats, strength, constitution, and charisma are set at 16 for the idea that this monster can back up its spine-tingling shriek with brute force. Dexterity is set at 9 since it relies more on its sheer strength to gain an advantage, intelligence at 8 for its brawn over brain attitude, and wisdom is at 12 since it is capable of making rational decisions while angered, so it may get the upper hand in fights. The Diablos' health average is set to 146, or 12d20 plus 20 if you roll the health. I had the intention of introducing this monster to a party of level 4 at level 6. Again, this form of a Diablos, in particular, is in the mindset of being used against lower level characters, so that later on, higher difficulty variants may be used like the ones I've mentioned earlier, to avoid repetitiveness in further encounters. Next is the CR rating and resistance. The challenge rating is set to 6 to fit the idea of a low rank, high rank, and master system just like in the games. As for the Diablos' strengths and weaknesses, its vulnerabilities are bludgeoning and ice, or cold if you're used to D&D terminology. The resistances are against slashing and thunder due to its super thick height, and has an immunity to fire since the Diablos is so resistant to heat already. The condition immunity to being charmed is for obvious reasons to its nature. Nobody wants to see the seduction of this beast. Nobody. Stop it.
Stop it. Get some help.
The Diablos has 45 feet for normal movement speed, 120 feet for movement through the sand when it burrows, and 10 feet for a hover effect. When the monster becomes enraged by reaching half or lower of its health, the walk and run speed bump up to 60 feet, and also gives the Diablos 10 feet of flying. The Diablos has a natural armor of 14, protecting it from a fair amount of attacks, but also to make sure the Diablos is not undefeatable, and to even out the extra health the Diablos bolsters so it can't overwhelm players immediately. With Dark Vision, the Diablos has a natural adaptation to living underneath the sand and in their dens, so it has 90 feet of vision in the dark, 60 feet in dim light, and only 30 feet in natural light. Any bright light, like a flash bomb, nearly blinds the monster, causing it to only be able to see 5 feet ahead of itself. A passive perception of 11 is to further show that the Diablos can use an update to its visual prescriptions like me, who has been sitting for 3 years with the same glasses. Of course, because this monster only really cares about protecting its home and itself, chaotic neutral felt most appropriate for the Diablos' nature. It is a large-bodied monster, so expect the Diablos to stand at least 10 feet high, at the bare minimum. Keeping in mind that I wanted to have the encounter as close to the video game as possible, its fundamentals are valued by incorporating them into features and traits. One trait that exists for every monster is known as the enraged status. This causes the monster to enter a frenzy and becomes more reckless, but more powerful. A monster becomes enraged when it loses half of its health or lower, and gains 45 temporary hit points, along with an additional 1 to AC. To add to the craziness, every attack that lands from this monster will gain an additional 1d4 to damage, but the monster has a disadvantage on dexterity and wisdom saving throws due to being in such a delirious state. Once the monster has been enraged for 3 full turns, it will calm down and become exhausted, which forces the monster to skip its next turn. When a Diablos is underneath the sand, the sensitivity to high sound frequencies becomes a huge deterrent to the monster. So, when a Diablos burrows underneath the ground, a player may expend a bonus action to use a sonic bomb, an item I've introduced from the games. This creates high sound frequencies to which are damaging to specific monsters' ears, which will force the Diablos to try and escape the sand, becoming stuck from the struggle until it can roll a saving throw to get out. This will still have an effect on the Diablos if it is above ground, but rather than becoming trapped, it will be stunned for 1 turn. If the Diablos chooses to burrow in combat, it acts as its action so that it's less stressful for the players. However, if the Diablos hasn't moved at all on this turn, this action can lead to a bonus action known as Quaking Horn Drill, which leads to devastating results if no players fish the monster out with a sand bomb in time. Moving over to more of its actions and bonus actions and everything, this Diablos does come with multiple unique actions along with a signature move. I call it a signature move because I think that sounds cool. Even with being meant as a lower-ended version of the monster, it's still going to pack a punch to overly confident hunters. First up is its multi-attack, which functions normally to D&D. It allows the Diablos to make a second attack on its turn. So essentially, 2 attacks. Boom. There you go. Devil's Dance is a multi-attack of its own. It has a +3 to hit and can potentially reach up to 90 feet and hit multiple targets with 2d10 plus 5, or an average of 16 piercing damage if it succeeds for each hit. This attack is halted if the Diablos misses any of its attempts to hit an enemy. If the Diablos is enraged, it will have the capability of attempting a 3rd hit if the first 2 succeed. The next attack on the list is its Horn Sweep action. This has a +3 to hit, has a reach of 15 feet, and hits all targets that stand in its cone formation, dealing 2d6 plus 2, or an average of 9 piercing damage. Every attack that the Diablos has the potential to hit multiple targets if you're not picking up on what I'm laying down with that. So, keep in mind how to use this to your advantage if you're intending to give your players a more difficult experience. The Tailspin attack is next, and that has a +2 to hit, 5 feet for the distance to hit multiple targets around the monster. Essentially, the monster is going to spin around. So, it does 2d10 plus 15 bludgeoning damage, with an 8 being the average roll. Just like in the game, the monster spins, like I was saying, around with full force, intending to knock everyone around it down or away, or may even whip violently around to slam the tail down onto a target. Finally, for the main actions, we have the Wyvern Hip Check. This attack has a +2 to hit, can target anyone on the side of the monster it is attacking towards, and can do 2d4 plus 3, or an average of 8 bludgeoning damage. It also causes players that are hit by this attack to roll a dexterity saving throw of 10 or higher. Otherwise, they will be knocked prone by the attack. Of course I had to name this what I did. It's one of the most notorious attacks almost every Wyvern carries in its arsenal, and I know everyone who has played can agree with me that it's probably one of the most aggravating hitboxes to ever hit. It's cheating. I'm gonna say it. It's cheating. And it's not because I'm mad that I still can't avoid it after 10 years of playing these games. Anyways, this type of Diablos has only one bonus action, which I refer to as the Quaking Horn Drill. This attack has +5 to hit with a 120-foot range, with a 10-foot radius once it does land its attack. But let's put a small tab on that and come back to it. This sounds rough, and it is. The kicker is that this can only happen if the Diablos has burrowed underground and has not used any of its movement this turn at all. It also is not able to burrow again on its next turn, as to not give the monster the ability to repeatedly make this attack over and over. The players must make a dexterity saving throw of at least 13 to avoid full damage and be knocked prone, instead taking only half damage if they succeed. Coming up next, we've got the Diablos' reactions. At least for the specific monster, so far the section contains only general reactions that all monsters are going to have. That being said, the first reaction the Diablos will come with is known as the Bellowing Roar. This replaces the opportunity attack reaction when the monster is not enraged. The monster will roar to stop anyone from disengaging. That creature must succeed a Constitution saving throw of 12 or higher, or they will be stunned in place, making disengagement impossible for this round. The other reaction is the opportunity attack, of course, with a slight twist to it. Monsters can only make opportunity attacks when they become enraged, giving players a safer method of dealing with the monster for a good duration of the battle. If the player attempts to disengage and fails a Constitution saving throw of 15, the monster chooses to grapple the player or NPC with its opportunity attack, and they are pinned as the monster leaps on top of them. Our final category to cover on the Diablos is its lair action. If the Diablos happens to be in its lair when you encounter it and fight it, it can choose to do one of two things. The first choice the Diablos has will happen when the initiative order makes its way to the fourth creature. After the creature takes its turn, the Diablos immediately follows up the turn by dashing into the wall of sand that's pouring down from alcoves that are in the ceiling. This gives the Diablos a turn to burst out and charge at any of the creatures it's fighting, and forces those creatures to make a dexterity saving throw of 15 or higher. Succeeding targets dodge out of the way unharmed, but any that do get caught in the Diablos' path will take 4d6 bludgeoning damage and end up prone on the ground. If the Diablos happens to become enraged inside of its lair, it begins its turn with a deafening scream that forces anything to hear it to roll a wisdom saving throw of 13 or higher. If any creatures fail, they are deafened for 3 turns, causing them to automatically fail any saving throw that involves hearing, including the Bellowing Roar opportunity attack. There's also a choice where the Diablos will begin a charging attack towards any creatures it sees. Regardless of the Diablos hitting or missing the attacks, it will slam into the walls 4 times and ultimately cause the lair to cave in. This will block the original entrance with debris, and the Diablos will immediately try to burrow to leave its lair, attempting to trap the creatures inside. The only way to get out of the lair is to climb your way out. The Diablos does not need to begin or even interact with its lair if you choose to have an alternative idea pop up for it. This is simply for anyone curious on how to provide a lair for the Diablos if they deem it necessary. All in all, this monster is meant to be the curve for beginners to get used to the idea of stronger monsters appearing and becoming a threat and challenge to them in their future adventures. You can find the link in the description to find your way over to the World Anvil page for the Diablos if you plan on incorporating it into a session or campaign. If you found this guide for introducing the Diablos to your world of D&D to be interesting or helpful in any way, please feel free to hit the like button so you can make sure to stay tuned for more content to come. I really appreciate you taking the time to give my video a watch. I plan to release more content soon to be used in any campaign, so make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to stay in the loop with whatever comes next. Thank you for watching, and I can't wait to see you for the next video. Coming up is going to be the flagship of flagship monsters, so make sure to keep an eye out for it. Have a great week, and I hope to see you soon.